Hello, and welcome to God Calling Vocation Vibes. This is a podcast of the Little Sisters of the Poor in the service of young men and women who are discerning their vocation. I'm Sister Carolyn, and I am blessed to have with me Sister Therese Marie. You may recall having met her at a previous opportunity on the podcast. That was in episode 16 when she gave her vocation story. It was really precious. The Rose tells it all, so be sure and catch that if you didn't already. Sister Therese Marie, could you please tell us a bit about yourself and where you're serving?
Yes, I am currently serving at our home in Newark, Delaware, with the more well residents and doing some vocation work also on the side a little bit.
Thank you. And so during this podcast episode, we're going to look at what are some of those signs you might be experiencing that nudge you to consider going deeper with your discernment. And number two, what does that look like, going deeper with your discernment? And then also number three, some tools. And finally, we're going to look at how certain do you need to be? And where does the element of trust in God come in? And what mix of the two is the magic ratio? So there's no magic, it's mystery, it's beautiful, and let's get going. So, Sister, can you please give some insights into what it is that might be signs that discerners should start taking their discernment to the next level?
So if you are experiencing a greater desire for more prayer and silence, or if you still feel that attraction to the life of a sister, that's a good sign. And sometimes it's spiritually, like it's not enough, maybe. And you're just searching for greater clarity and desire for a deeper commitment in your life, because the young people nowadays sometimes have a hard time with commitment. So, but if you're having that desire for a deeper commitment, that's a good sign too, that maybe you need to take your discernment to a new level to go deeper.
As to your point about feeling the attraction is a very good one because, sometimes people feel an attraction to religious life or priesthood and it keeps coming back. But in between the visits of this attraction, there are so many thoughts about, like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? All these thoughts and fears, but the attraction keeps coming back. If the attraction keeps coming back and nudging your heart, that is a sign that God may want you to look at it further. And, we're launching a new year. What better time to move your discernment to the next level? And that doesn't necessarily mean entering religious formation or entering seminary. That means moving it to the next level of exploration, looking a little deeper and preparing your heart to discover whatever it is that God may wish for you. So how about the thought, what others may think? What do you think, Sister?
If we worry about what others think, I'll just give an example of my own life a little bit, because I know that was a concern of mine. And I was actually pleasantly surprised. Even my girlfriends from high school were actually very supportive. And my family was supportive because I grew up in a very Catholic family. But in my experience, I really didn't have anybody that wasn't happy with my decision, if you want to say that. But I know some people do meet opposition from their families, but I really feel like if we are following God's call, He will give us the grace we need to do that. And it may not always be easy, but there will be a lot of people who will support you.
So how do we open ourselves to formation? Let's say I'm a young discerner and I'm feeling that nudge. I've deepened my prayer life. I'm willing to take my exploration to the next level. So how about formation of my heart? Am I willing to let God reshape my desires? I'm experiencing that desire for a life totally given to Him, but I'm experiencing a lot of other desires too. Am I willing to let Him reshape my desires? Because that's the only way in which I'm really going to experience peace. And then to let myself grow in a deeper peace, even amidst uncertainty. People want to know all the answers. They want to feel in control of their future. And sometimes experiencing certainty is such a powerful goal for people that they never can find peace in the uncertainty, which is a part of human life. And so being able to trust God enough to find peace even without knowing all the answers, and to trust that He will provide us the answers as we take each step. He'll reveal to us what our future is. So I think those are important things, letting our hearts be formed. I read a book, The Dazzling Light of God. It's by Madeline Del Burrell, and she talks about letting God lead you in the dance. It's like the dance of obedience to His will. And it's important not to be rigid and not to have your preset notions about where the dance is going to take you. You need to be limber in His arms and be ready to go forward or backward or sideways, wherever He leads you. And that's what makes the dance beautiful. So maybe letting Him shape your desires and letting Him take the lead in this dance of your love relationship with Him. I would suggest that. And then what else, Sister, in regard to community connection? Are there some things there that a discerner should consider?
So many congregations have like retreat days that you could attend. And that's a very good way to get a better idea what being a sister is all about, and getting to know an individual congregation and how they live out their religious life. Doing service, like we mentioned before, doing service days with congregations is also a good way. Sometimes you're with a group, so then you're kind of sneaking in, as it were, and it may not be as obvious that you're actually discerning. So it might be a way to kind of get your foot in the door without making it super obvious, if you feel better doing it that way. And then very often congregations have like times of prayer that you can attend, holy hours. Like I said, retreats might be longer, but there's also some that are just, if you want to come for holy hour with the different sisters in different congregations, a lot of them have those opportunities also. So it's a way to connect with the sisters, pray with them. Some of them, most of us will do divine office, praying the evening prayer, morning prayer. So that's a beautiful way to get to know some of the prayer life of the sisters. I think that's also, for me, that was very helpful and very beautiful. Also, I think it's helpful to build friendships with other women who are discerning. So when you go on these retreats, you'll run into other women who are also discerning, and sharing your stories with them. I always found that very helpful in my discernment. And when I work with other women, I think they also find that very, very helpful, because you kind of say, okay, this person is experiencing similar things I'm experiencing. So maybe God is calling me to this way of life, or maybe God isn't calling me. It depends how the Lord leads you. And I liked your analogy about the dance. That was really beautiful. It's letting God take the lead. And God wants to tell us where He wants us to be. If we're open, He will definitely tell us. He will lead us. And sometimes it's just one step at a time, because we may not be ready for the full truth at a certain stage in our life. So He's going to lead us one step at a time, but we got to let Him take the lead and be open. He will lead us.
Yes. So those were excellent suggestions that you offered. And I think sometimes we overlook the fact that the friends that we hang out with, the people that we gather with, are a wonderful intentional community to support us. So that's why it's important to seek out friends who align with our values. And we see this as Little Sisters of the Poor. We often go to college Catholic campus ministries, Newman centers, and to see the friendships among the young people there and how they love the Lord so much, and they really desire to grow in their Christ likeness. It's amazing. It is awesome. So to be intentional in forming community, even before you get to a point where you're ready to join a community, is an excellent practice, and it's an excellent preparation of your heart. So, Sister, on the topic of lifestyle alignment, are there any things that a young man or woman should do as they deepen their discernment? I mean, should I live my life this coming year just like I lived it last year? Or are there some gradual, subtle changes that I should make as a discerning young person that will bring me closer to God's revealing my call to me?
So simplifying our daily living is one aspect. And I can give an example. Recently, I was talking to a young man who is discerning possible priesthood or religious life as a Dominican. And he was just sharing with me that one of the things he's done is he's simplified just the way he dresses, even. He says, I just do simple. And he said he used to be more fashionable, I guess, or something like that. But so now he's simplified even just the way he dresses. That's one step he took to kind of go along that discernment, as it were. That's just an example. Also, I think it's very helpful to integrate silence into our daily lives. That's one thing I think young people are hungering for that, but it's not something that happens without doing it intentionally, as it were. Our lives are very busy. We have music, we have internet, we have iPhones, we have all this stuff, different things that we don't have any silence then. So the silence is very, very important to help us to hear God's voice. And actually, it was that same young man, he was telling me a story that he spends time in adoration. He said, but sometimes it's just when I'm in the car driving that God actually speaks to me then. So even when you're driving, maybe it's a good idea to turn off the radio and just be quiet. And then maybe God will, that he was given that example of how God speaks to him, maybe not in adoration, but he speaks to him other times. But we got to give God that moment of silence to allow him to speak to us too.
Yes, and I've read a lot lately. I've a number of articles that have come to my attention about young women specifically, and I'm sure there are similarities with men, but young women who are just really seeking silence and who are, the articles say, flocking to convents to get times for silence
Mm.
and just prayer and just being with the Lord. And that's an interesting phenomenon, but I think it's so much more than a phenomenon. I think it's really a trend that God has placed deep in the hearts of young people who are realizing that worldly values are not all there is. And so we've actually had young women in our region who are asking us to have a silent discernment retreat. So we actually have one planned, and it is beautiful that they want that silence, that they don't need like entertainment, even if it's spiritual entertainment, every moment, every hour. They want time with the Lord. So that's a very good suggestion, and I think a very fruitful one. And then, of course, as Sister mentioned, making choices that reflect, where our hearts are heading. Sister, can you offer any more thoughts on that, on making choices that align with where our hearts are heading? I mean, what about dating? What about, you know, um, control of our lives? What about different things that maybe we could practice trying to let go of?
So I would think if you are discerning a call to the religious life, it could be helpful maybe not to date during that time. It doesn't mean that you can't, but um, I just find it would be helpful to focus on that one thing first and kind of get it worked out. It doesn't mean that, so if God, say you're discerning a religious life, religious vocation, and some nice, like if you're a woman, a young man comes along and then you discern that you're called to marriage, that that's okay. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that God won't intervene, because he might not want you to be a sister. He might make something else come along. But I do find it helpful if you can just focus on the one thing, really, when you're discerning. But God can do as he wishes, of course. And then I think just some of the other things we've mentioned as far as making choices. So, I think controlling what we see on the internet, different things like that can also be helpful to not have all this distraction, I guess, going around in our heads. I guess that just goes with simplicity of life. I think that's part of it. And maybe even trying to read spiritual books, we mentioned reading scripture, but also, there are some, or actually maybe something positive would be podcasts. There's been plenty of good podcasts to help us deepen our faith. as opposed to watching just stuff for entertainment or something like that. So maybe that's one way too to help us deepen our understanding of our faith, and then hopefully deepening our love for the Lord and our deepening our faith.
And I like that point you made about selecting what we listen to or watch on the media, because the media aren't all bad. And if you look at episode 42, actually, of this podcast, it's about discerning in a digital environment. And the young priest who did the episode was really excellent. So I would advise it. But yes, we need times of profound silence, but also the social media and so forth are part of our world. And so if we can, as Sister said, make good choices and let our hearts be formed in the direction in which we feel God might be calling us. So those are a lot of thoughts about how to deepen one's discernment, some tools to use, some ways to form our hearts and so forth. And I'd like to share the testimony of a young Franciscan friar, Father Manny. He also was on our podcast recently, the episode Meet the Vocation Directors, but he said that, and we talked about visiting convents and so forth, and he said that he felt very safe discerning online. Like he would click and he would look at different orders and he would read all about them, and he felt like he was moving his discernment forward. But actually, he was on the other side of the screen, and it was only when he decided to go visit a friar that everything started to open up for him. And then he visited and met more friars and met more friars. And then his heart really resonated with what he was experiencing. And so I love Friar Manny's his testimony, because a lot of people feel very secure just poking around on the internet and exploring convents and monasteries that way. But let yourself enter into the beauty of what it is you're discerning for. That would be my suggestion. So, Sister, we're getting to the point that is really a sticking point for a lot of young discerners. And that is, how certain do I need to be? I am really not certain. I may be 70%, 80%. I had one young woman who was discerning with us say, Sister, I feel called to be a little sister of the poor, but I'm only 95% certain. That's all you need. You need to leave a little room for trust in God and for him to be able to step forward and offer you his hand and his heart. And I read something recently about the 70% rule, how this general in the army said he has this 70% rule. If he has 70% of the information he needs to make a potentially good decision, he makes it. Because if you wait till you have 100% of the information you need, it's too late. And so I saw someone online applying that to all different areas of life, and maybe that's a good thing to consider. Do we need all the information? Do we gather facts and we get experiences, but do we leave room for God? Or do we have to be 100% certain? So that may be something we need to pray about. Are we willing to let go of our notion that we need to be 100% certain? Sister, your thoughts?
One thing I mentioned to somebody else recently is that the church allows us this time of, so even once we enter, so like if I'm just giving an example of sisters, you're usually a postulant for a certain amount of time. You're a novice for 2 years. And then after that, that's like 3 years. That's when you make your first commitment as a sister. So all that time is time of discernment, further discernment. So even once you've entered, it doesn't mean that you have to stay. It's also a time of discernment. And even after that, there's some more time of discernment as you live out your life as a sister or a brother, so, and in the seminary, same thing. When you enter the seminary, it's at least 8 years before you become a priest. So that's all a time of discernment. So, we enter thinking this is what God is asking of me. I may not be 100% certain, but we also have that time of further discernment to find out if is it God's will. So I think that should be consoling to some to say, okay, I'm pretty certain this is what God is asking me. I'm going to give it a try with my heart in it 100%, but down the road, if I discern it's not my call, then I'm at peace. I gave it my 100% try, and God has told me that it's not, or whatever, or it might be, and then you're at peace and you go forward and you live your life as a sister or a brother. Or so I think that's important for young people to realize that that also is a time of discernment once you've even entered,
That's not failure.
No,
That's
it's not.
success
It
because
is.
because you're growing in your relationship with the Lord and you're finding where it is that He wants you. That's 100% success.
And that time
This
is never lost. It's such a formation in the seminary or in the religious congregation is so beautiful that even if you discern it's not your call with, you are ahead already spiritually because of that time of formation.
And so we talked about this dance of obedience, this romance where we let God guide the steps and we just stay limber in His arms. Of course, we're active in our discernment and we are taking these steps to try to grow in love and our prayer life and in Christian virtue and so forth. But could you talk a little bit more, sister, about letting God be the protagonist in our discernment?
I think it's just being available. And I still love that analogy of, like you said, to let God take the lead, and he moves us this way, he moves us that way. And that I think it's something also important to realize that it's a relationship. And for us sisters, it's like a spousal relationship, that Jesus is the one calling us to this intimate, personal relationship with Him. And He invites all people to that. But I think as sisters, since we're not getting married, to a man on earth, that Jesus is really our spouse. And that's it's a spiritual thing, obviously, right? But if we really delve into that, it's really beautiful. Jesus takes care of us for sure, 100%. It doesn't mean our life is always easy. Jesus said, if you want to come after me, you have to take up your cross daily and follow me. So the cross is there, no matter what vocation you have, the cross is there. But for us as sisters, it's that spousal relationship with Jesus. And if He's inviting you to that, to be His only, then it's a beautiful life, I can say. So it's not really, some people think discernment might be like a puzzle to be solved, but no, it's just that relationship, and we're growing in that relationship, and we're trying to see what is the Lord asking of us in this. Is He asking me for everything? Follow me, come follow me. He said that to the apostles, and they left everything and they followed Him. Is that what God is asking of you? I mean, He asked everybody to follow Him, but I guess in different degrees, you know what I mean, in a sense.
And I like your point about um, discernment not being like a puzzle that you have to solve. And I laugh because I think about our little sisters in community. There's a group that likes to do the puzzles, and they're very intent on the puzzles, and they've got to find that piece that goes here. And it's very intense, and silence will descend upon them. And all of a sudden they find the piece. So much joy and laughter. But discernment is not like that. It's not a puzzle. I hide a piece behind His back for us to try to find. It's like you say, love is relational and vocation is relational. And the goal is not that we be perfect in our discernment, but that we be available and let Him take the lead. I think God takes us one step at a time, and sometimes people wish they knew the whole answer. We all wish we knew the whole answer, but He takes us one step at a time. But I just think it's important. I'd like to revisit that element of peace, finding peace in the discernment, finding peace in the uncertainty as we take all these other steps to help our hearts grow in readiness for what it is that the Lord wishes for us. And I think sometimes, like Sister, you talked about in discernment, maybe giving up dating for a while. And really, I think sometimes there's this default thinking that we've got to find our spouse. But if we're so intensely focused on what we think as the default, how can we open our hearts to God's movements and to what He wants to show us? So, Sister, you've given some very good input for ideas for those who are watching and listening to move their discernment to the next level in this new year. And I wonder, do you have any closing thoughts, questions for listeners, suggestions for the listeners and viewers? Sister, what might you have to say as a parting thought for them?
So one question I think would be good to ask is, what is one small step God is asking you to take as you begin this new year? What is that one small step you can take to maybe take your discernment to another level? And then the challenge is to act on it. You have to come up with what's the small step and then do it. So it could be, okay, I have not visited at any congregations yet. Okay, Lord, maybe I should just visit a congregation that seems like it might be where you're calling me. I got to take that first step, call them up, send them an email and say, Sister, I'm discerning, da 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 da, I want to visit. Or sign up for a retreat at a congregation if you see a flyer somewhere. So like to say, what is that next step? Or maybe it's not even that yet. Maybe it's just to get a spiritual director. Okay, Lord, are you asking me to find a spiritual director? So ask your parish priest or, somebody, if you're on campus, maybe campus ministry, the priests that are involved in campus ministry, and ask, I need a spiritual director. Could you be my spiritual director? I'm just giving examples, but so you have to figure out what is that small step you're going to take it to the next level, and then to do it.
Yes. And in the new year, the goal is not necessarily to enter seminary or religious formation. Maybe it is, but it's whatever God wants. So the goal in this podcast episode is to help us to really take it to the next level so that a year from now, we won't be at the same place that we're at today, that we'll be deeper into God's beautiful plan for our lives. And we hope that the suggestions that we've given have been a help for you. Again, this is God Calling Vocation Vibes, a podcast of little sisters of the poor in service of those who are discerning their call in life. And Sister Therese Marie, I thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights with us. And I wish all of you blessings throughout the coming year. If you have questions or comments, or if you would desire vocation accompaniment, spiritual accompaniment on your walk with Jesus, feel free to contact us at LSPUSA-Podcast@gmail.com. And be sure and like and share, especially share this podcast episode with young people who are discerning, so that hopefully what we've shared may be able to help more people as they discern the calling of God in their hearts. And Sister and I promise you our prayers and those of all of our little sisters that each of you find and rejoice in the vocation to which God is calling you.